Hello. What was Jesus' strategy for reaching lost people? What was it about Jesus that caused crowds of people to flock to him everywhere he went? What was it about Jesus that caused his worst critics to pay him his highest compliment? What was Jesus' strategy for reaching lost people? Well, his strategy was this: being relational. Jesus' worst critics said he was a friend of sinners. Now, they didn't mean that as a compliment. They meant it as a criticism. It was kind of like being guilty by association. They said because he spends so much time with sinners, that makes him a sinner. And the reason they said he's a friend of sinners was because they were trying to discredit Jesus publicly. They didn't want people to put their faith and trust in him. And so they called him a friend of sinners to discredit him. But Jesus was relational. And he was relational for three reasons. First, he was relational because he prioritized people. Jesus met the needs of people who came to him everywhere he went. He fed people when they were hungry. He healed people who were sick, like people who were lame and couldn't walk. He healed them and made it possible for them to walk. People who were mute, he made them talk. People who were blind, he opened their eyes so they could see. And even people who were demon-possessed, Jesus cast demons out of them and gave them their sanity and their life back. Jesus was sometimes tired and needing rest, but he would go without so that he could meet the needs of people who had come to him for help. He was often interrupted in what he was doing, but he would take the time to stop and minister to people as they needed and put them above his own agenda. And Jesus would often break cultural rules, like when he healed people on the Sabbath. There's at least 3 times we know of in the Bible where he was criticized for healing people on the Sabbath day. Or like when he met a woman at the well and had a private conversation with her. He was breaking cultural rules and barriers by doing that. But he prioritized people. And he put other people before himself and his own agenda. Jesus also valued people. Like when parents would bring their little children to Jesus for him to pray over them and bless them. And his disciples told him, "No, go away." But Jesus said, "No, let the little children come to me," because he valued them. Or like when Jesus spared the life of an adulterous woman who was brought to him. The Pharisees said, "We've caught this woman in the act of adultery, and the law says we should stone her. But what do you say, Jesus?" And he said, "Well, whichever of you is without sin, be the first one to cast the stone." And what did they do? They dropped their stones and walked away until there was no one left. And Jesus said to the woman, "Has no one condemned you?" And she said, "No one." And he says to her, "Then neither do I condemn you. Now go and leave your life of sin." He spared her life because he valued her. Or like when Jesus came walking into town one day and he sees a man sitting in a tree and he looks up into the tree and he says, "Zacchaeus, come down because I want to go to your house for lunch today." Zacchaeus was a wealthy man. He was a tax collector and he cheated people out of their money by overcharging them on their taxes. Do you think somebody like that had a lot of friends? Most likely not. And then Jesus comes into town and says, "Zacchaeus, I value you. I want to be your friend. I'm coming to your house to spend time with you today." Jesus valued people. And Jesus loved people. Like when he stood at the grave of his friend Lazarus, and the Bible says he wept. Or like when he saw a funeral procession going by one day, and there was a widow who had lost her only son. And so Jesus goes up to the casket and raises this boy back to life and gives him back to his mother. He showed her love and compassion. Or like when Jesus would spend time with sinners and people who were considered outcasts. Jesus loved people. And Jesus ultimately showed his love for people by willing to give up his own life, by dying on the cross for other people's sin. He didn't die for his own sin. He died for other people's sin, your sin and my sin. Jesus was relational because he prioritized people, he valued people, and he loved people. Jesus won people over by being relational. The crowds of people flocked to Jesus because he was relational. And I've been reminded lately that if I'm going to reach lost people and if I'm going to make disciples of Jesus Christ, then I'm going to have to be relational too. I'm going to have to be relatable to people who are not Christians. And I'm going to have to intentionally invest my life into the life of other people who are not believers. And the same is true for you, my friends. If you want to reach lost people and make disciples, then you're going to have to follow the same strategy of Jesus and be relational. Jesus' worst critics called him a friend of sinners, but it was the highest compliment. Jesus says in Luke 19:10, the Son of Man came to seek and to save those who are lost. Jesus fulfilled his purpose, which was to win and save lost people. That's why he came, and that's why their criticism of Jesus is actually his highest compliment. He did what he came to do. And so Jesus' strategy for reaching lost people is to be relational. What do you think? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Share a comment below and tell me what you think. I'm Matthew Lawrence. Thanks for watching.